it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about my recent reads for spring 2017. So today's video is actually a little bit different. I'm testing out a few different things today. So one, I'm in a little bit of a different space. I'm technically in the same space, but usually I am standing over here, and now I am in the center. I just did like a little dance. That was great. Anyways, I have been eternally frustrated by the lighting of my videos in my bedroom. I spend a ridiculous amount of time doing color correcting, and it still doesn't really turn out correctly. I'm just very picky about my lighting, so I'm trying out different lighting kits, so I don't know if this is going to be the setup from now on. Right now I'm trying out soft boxes, so I have one there, and then me here, and I'm also changing the overhead light in my room because at the moment I have like a kitchen sort of light, so it's like spot lighting, and it just makes terrible things happen for my lighting, so I'm fed up with that business, and we are changing that this weekend. Finally, I'm so excited about that, but I'm just standing here because that's the only way where I could have my soft boxes and have both of them be on me. But I did order a ring light as well, so I'm going to try that out, and whatever one I don't like I'm going to return, but hopefully one of them works out because it is just so frustrating to me that I always hate my lighting. But anyways, the other thing that we're trying out is a new video idea, which is recent reads. It's a new series that I'm going to be doing where seasonally I will be talking about my top 5 or 6 favorite reads for that season. So obviously today we are talking about spring 2017, so these are the books that I read in March, April, or May, but it's actually only March and April because in May I was gone and didn't read anything. So we're going to be talking about 6 books today, so without further ado, let's just dive on in. So in no particular order, first up we have Wanderlust by Jen Malone. I am on an eternal quest to find amazing YA travel books. I love ones that are about road trips, and specifically I've been on a kick where I love ones about European travel. I read this one before I went on my trip because I was all about that life, and now that I've gotten back from my trip I've been reading a ton once again, so I will be doing a recommendations video for those for you guys soon. I just have a couple more that I want to read and then I will do that for you guys, but this one was definitely one of the ones that I really enjoyed. It tells the story of Aubrey, and Aubrey is very much a homebody. She lives in Ohio. She has kind of a boring, just average life, but she's okay with that. She likes staying at home. She's never actually left. Well, she's left her house, but she hasn't really traveled a lot. So her sister Elizabeth is kind of this goody two-shoes, and she's going to college next year and wants to look good on her college applications, so she is going off to Europe to lead a tour group of elderly people. But something ends up happening and Elizabeth is no longer able to go, so instead in her place Aubrey ends up going and pretending to be Elizabeth. There's a few problems with this. First off, Aubrey doesn't really know anything about the places that they're going, and she's supposed to be leading these older people around, and she feels just very ill prepared for it. The other problem is she's never done a huge trip like this, and the third problem kind of comes a bit after when she meets the tour company's son, and she ends up kind of striking up a relationship with him, but he doesn't know who she actually is. This was just a really fun travel story. I loved the travel elements of it. I loved the romance of it. I was frustrated at points with the story because you just knew it was going to all blow up at one point, but it was a really good story nonetheless. I loved the European travel aspect of it. I think it was really well done, and a lot of times it's not so well done, so that was very exciting, and I just loved to see Aubrey breaking out of her shell. I felt like it was something that I really related to because I am a bit of a homebody myself, and reading this before I was going off to Europe for a month, I felt just very akin to a lot of Aubrey's feelings, so it was a great story for me to read. Next up is Queen of Hearts by Colleen Oakes. I was very skeptical about this story because I am extremely critical of Alice in Wonderland retellings for good reason. It's like my favorite story in the whole world, so whenever I am presented with an Alice in Wonderland retelling, I am just going to be a lot harder on it than I would on other novels. Not that I'm not hard on them as well, but this one I'm going to be like scrutinizing. But this was such a great read. I loved the fact that it took Wonderland and it had a political twist on it. It was just a very cool story, and I definitely want to continue with the series, and I really was not expecting to like it, but there were so many little aspects coming from the original Alice stories that were brought into here subtly, like just subtly enough that you caught it, but it wasn't like in your face. It was just so amazing. So this is just kind of a more grotesque and political side of Wonderland that you don't normally see, which was awesome. It tells the story of Dinah, who is a princess who is supposed to rule Wonderland in the future, and she just longs for her father's approval, which is very hard to get, and she is set to be on this throne, but then it turns into a story of betrayal and all these these political pawns being moved around, and she's trying to sort things out, and she just ends up headfirst in the world of politics of Wonderland that she did not want to get into. So overall, this was a great Wonderland retelling. I loved it so much. I thought it was very original, which is kind of hard to find since the story is so popular and has been retold so many times, but this one did it very well. Next up is Geek Arella by Ashley Poston. This is another book that I wasn't really expecting to enjoy as much as I did. Obviously, from the title, you can tell that it has something to do with Cinderella, but it's basically like a direct retelling of Cinderella, which I wasn't expecting at all, but it was a really pleasant surprise. So basically, we have Elle, who is the Cinderella character, who is just a complete geek, hence Geek Arella, and she lives with her evil stepmother and her evil stepsisters, and then we have our Prince Charming figure. He's a celebrity who is set to star in the latest remake of her favorite sci-fi TV show or film. I can't remember which one, but he is set to star in the remake nonetheless. Honestly, the only way I can really describe this book is that it was an absolute joy to read. It was so much fun, very quirky and different and unique, and it just had me smiling the whole entire time because it was so cute and just absolutely adorable and geeky and just amazing. It was so good. So if you have a passion for geeky fan culture, then I think you would very much enjoy this. Next up is Girl Man's Up by M.E. Gerard. This is a Canadian book, so Canadian author and Canadian setting, which I was super excited about. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I remembered to include this book on my Canada Reads video, which is so sad because it was so good. I was very pleasantly surprised by this book because I wasn't sure how I would like it, but the authenticity of the voice in this novel was really what set it apart from all other LGBTQ novels that I have read. So this book tells the story of Pen, and Pen is expected to dress like a very girly girl by not only society, but also her family. Her mother in particular just really wants her to put on a dress, slap on some makeup, and look like a typical girl. But she doesn't like that. She would much rather be wearing her brother's clothes and just wear t-shirts and jeans and just easy stuff like that, where she feels comfortable and like she can truly be herself. But she experiences a lot of hatred because of that, and especially from her family, and she just wants nothing more than to be herself, but everyone is telling her that being herself is the wrong thing. This was such a powerful read, and I think it's very important, and it really showed how society has a certain expectation for people, and if you don't meet that expectation, then you're going to be ridiculed because of that. And it's just terrible. It was very eye-opening, and I highly recommend it. Next up is Hunted by Megan Spooner. This was easily one of my most anticipated releases of 2017. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it did not disappoint. It was one of the retellings that I've read that has stayed closest to the original fairy tale, or at least the original fairy tale feel. That was kind of difficult for me to say, I'm sorry. But this was so good. I honestly felt like I was reading another fairy tale. The way that it's written was amazing. It just had that kind of old fable vibe to it, which worked so well for the story, and it wasn't terribly action-packed. It's not a very quick read. I wasn't on the edge of my seat the whole time, but it worked because of the fairy tale aspect to it. It just was kind of slow burning, and it just was perfect for the content of the story. So honestly, if you are looking for a good Beauty and the Beast retelling, I highly recommend this one because it was amazing. Next up is The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. I had for sure been very highly anticipating this book before it came out, and once again was not disappointed at all. This is one of my favorite books that I have read this year, easily, if not #1. It was so good, and I identified with the main character so much, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, was because it was very relatable for me. So this book tells the story of 17-year-old Molly, and Molly has had numerous crushes on boys, but she never actually acts on them or does anything. So she's never really experienced a true relationship because she's so afraid of rejection and just experiencing that she kind of holds back. But her sister Cassie is just wild and crazy and out there and kind of the complete opposite of her, and she tells her to just woman up and go and ask a guy out. Why not? So it's all about her kind of coming out of her shell, learning to accept herself and learning to give love a chance and give herself a chance. And it was such a beautiful story about acceptance, and it deals with different mental illnesses, which is awesome as well, and it deals with sisterhood and friendship, and it was just so beautiful. I loved it so much, and I do really want to do a review. I haven't done a review for any of the books that I mentioned in this video because I'm very behind on reviews, but let me know down below which ones you want me to review, and I'll see if I can do them for you. This one I think for sure I want to do, but yeah, I suck lately. And the final book on this list is History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, another very pleasant surprise for me. I read More Happy Than Not a year or two ago, and I wasn't a big fan. That was his first novel, and it wasn't for me. I didn't really like the writing and everything, but then I heard about this one and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. And I ended up listening to the audiobook for it, and I loved it so much. It had me, I was sitting at work and I was trying not to cry, and I don't cry a lot at books, so that is a very high praise from me. But this book tells the story of Griffin, and Griffin and Theo had been great friends, and then they started dating, but then they ended up breaking up because Theo was moving to California. But Griffin never really fully closed the door on that relationship. He always felt like they were meant to be together, and eventually Theo would come back and they would be together. But then Theo dies in a tragic accident, and he ends up having the only person that he can find solace in is Theo's new boyfriend, Jackson. So that's all I'm really going to say about the synopsis, because I don't want to give too much away. I feel like this is one that you can just kind of go into not knowing a lot, and I think that works very well with this one. But it was just such a beautiful but heartbreaking story about acceptance and grief. The grief was so potent in this story, and friendship and just trying to learn to move on was a huge theme in this one, and it was beautiful. The relationships, it was just incredible. Just read it. It was so, so, so good. So those are my top 6 recent reads for spring 2017. Let me know if you guys like this series of video. If you guys don't, then maybe I won't do it, or maybe I'll decide if I like it or not. I don't really know. I just thought it was a fun way to talk a little bit more about the books that I really enjoyed that I've read recently, since in my wrap-ups I don't get a ton of time to really go into them and talk about them a lot. So this kind of just gives me a way to talk about them a little bit more and elaborate more on my thoughts and feelings. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!